Hi, and welcome to the Backyard Road Trips podcast. I'm Zach.
I'm Jim.
And today we have a special guest with us. We have author James Rourke, who will be speaking with us all about his new book, as well as his illustrious writing career.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on.
No worries.
So your latest book, can you tell us a little bit about Stone Souls, as well as some of the background about yourself?
All right, well, Stone Souls is a dystopian novel. It was 10 years in the making. It was a very long process to get this book out, and we can probably get into that.
Because you were working on this was one of the ones you were working on years ago when I interviewed you for Norwich Magazine, correct?
Yes.
Okay, because that's what was. I'm like the number that you've just released in 2020. Now you're releasing 2022. I'm like, oh my god, how do you? So how?
No.
Yeah.
What happened was I don't crank anything out. Actually, I'm a very slow writer, so it was already in the bullpen, if you will. Mm-hmm. But I was working on a decade ago. What was it called? The Eternal Struggle. So The Eternal Struggle was the first book of a planned young adult trilogy. And in fact, the first book was released, and the next two books were in a very solid skeleton manuscript, if you will. Like, all right, now we got to add some meat to this and whatnot. But it's there. I was good to go. But it didn't seem like the direction I could go in with it, publishing-wise, was working out. And so while I was trying to be patient with that process, in the third book of that trilogy, in the third manuscript, there's a character, Kurt Stone Adams, who's introduced. And once again, it's a young adult trilogy, but even the toned down Kurt Adams, I went, wow, this guy is fascinating. And on some level for me, it was that bad guy. Like, this could be the my memorable bad guy character. The Jokers, the almost any villainous character from a Quentin Tarantino movie, those type of people. And I said, so I ripped them right out of it, which then took that in manuscript and destroyed the whole story because you're missing. But I pulled them out and I started building a whole world around that character's iteration from that book and just expanding upon it. And so I'm working on that. And then the book Out of the Basement just starts pounding at my creative mind, if you will, like demanding to be written. I don't know how else to put it. And so Stone Souls got, even though it was pretty far along, got backburnered because this internal demand to write Out of the Basement. So I wrote Out of the Basement, got that done, and then that came out, and then I went back and finished up Stone Souls. So Stone Souls was an interesting process.
Yeah, that's just fascinating as a nonfiction writer such as myself to hear just kind of the development of the books as well as the characters themselves. I mean, that's just, when I'm writing something, it's like, I'm researching whatever the various things that I might be researching, but there's never that kind of creative development that you're going through, which is just as remarkable. So it's so cool. That's really from an outsider's perspective, just super cool.
Do you think of people, or like how do you, when you're basing a character off like your real life experiences, or?
It depends on the character. Kurt Adams isn't based on anyone I know personally because it could be horrifying to know this guy. Like you don't want to know him, but you can still get sucked into his story. You think about most dystopian novels that, well, I can't say most dystopian novels I know, you're kind of dropped into that dystopian world. It already exists. In 1984, sure. It's established. Big Brother's well established. Mm-hmm. Even then you go to like Hunger Games, that world's already well established, and you're seeing the struggle within that world. And on one level, Stone Souls is the same. The common states of America, that country is established. It exists right along the Mississippi River in the middle of the United States. But I kind of wanted to play with the idea of how do you get citizens to buy into the new country? So part of Stone Souls is also the state of Louisiana wants to join. They've petitioned to become a member of the CSA. And the CSA accepted the petition. So you're watching also the initiation of a new state into the common states of America. So, and it's even called the initiation protocols. And so you're watching this country go through the initiation protocols, and you have these two characters, Raymond and Karen Butler, who are supposed to be your like everyday character on the ground, and they're transitioning and how do they handle that transition? What does that look like for them and their daughter, Lizzie? Kurt Adams is based more on, frankly, like Russian revolutionaries. It's a lot of his characters comes from a pamphlet that was called The Catechism of the Vocational Revolutionary that came out in the 1870s. And what does it mean to be revolutionary? How dedicated you're supposed to be, which is absolutely dedicated. People are on your side, very much with you or against you type of mentality. We're doing things for the good of the people, but if people don't get it, if they can't figure it out quick enough, you can eliminate them and just keep the ones around who understand what you're doing. So Stone Adams is based very much on trying to take that pamphlet from the 1870s and I don't know, personify it into this character.
Absolutely. So when talking with the questions, I mean, we're looking at the second one we put about the writing process differs. So you're kind of answering that as we go along about how this kind of developed. Where again, it's just having one full idea out of something, and then kind of having to table it while something else is taking your creative momentum, and then coming back to it. Where it's like, is there ever any difficulty in structuring your thoughts or figuring out how to make it all work?
I would say there's always difficulty in structuring my thoughts.
Okay, yeah, because I was going to say, I mean, I can't even figure out what I'm going to have for breakfast, no matter.
One of the things I do, and once again, and it's a different process for different people, so there's hardly an endorsement of this is the way to write.
Right.
I find an idea will come along, garners my attention. I'll write the first chapter, let's say. I'll write just right, and and maybe most of the first chapter doesn't even survive that very, 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 very first draft. But usually between chapter 1 and chapter 2 of that process, when I don't even know anything yet, an ending will come to me, and wow, that's bad. I don't know what that scene is, and there's these people in it who I don't actually know. It actually plays like a movie, like up here, and I'll just watch it. I go, that's the ending. And if I get the ending, then I'm going to write the story because I got to know how we get there and everything. And if that should happen for me, then I go back. I look at chapter 1 that I've written and I outline it. Okay, here's who's introduced. Here's what's going on. Here's the basic premise of this. Where does that seem to be going? Then I'll usually make a rough outline for chapters 2 and 3. Then it becomes a herk and jerk process. Then I'll write the first few chapters based on that outline. Then I'll go back because as you're writing, and you know this, as you're writing, thoughts come to you.
Of course,
so you put them in there.
Right.
So now my completed 3 chapters don't look entirely like my original outline. So I got to go back and outline it again.
Right.
And in so doing, and this is where this can go next. And then you really start taking notes. And I have a journal where I keep all these notes for the growing. Because, for example, I'm working on a book right now called Lost Diamonds. And I have 12 chapters outlined.
Wow.
But I have 6 written. So, the outlines are guiding me. I've drawn a rather ugly map that I can't draw of this island nation and the inner politics of each nation and what's important to them, what they would fight for, what they would negotiate for, and things of that nature. So, but it's all that kind of back and forth.
Do you find it, just as someone who's, again, currently working on something else, but just released your latest book?
Yeah.
I know, like, kind of my level, I often... right now I'm working on this distillery book that's been about a year that I've been working on this. My last book came out in October, and I felt so far removed from that book when it came out in October because I'm deep into this distillery book that I'm like, oh, wait a second. I have to start talking about this thing that I have no relation to as much anymore, or to the point where I remember rereading my second book, or reading my second book as a published book and being like, wow, that's interesting. I never knew that. Oh, wait a second.
I must have known that.
Right. But just being like, when you're immersing yourself in another project, becoming so, just being removed from it and kind of having to then realize, okay, I need to focus back on this, even though my like creative mind is doing this.
No, that's a very real experience for me too.
Okay.
You're like, I'm working on Lost Diamonds. I'm
right.
making notes.
Right.
And I got a Stone Soul thing I got to talk about.
Yes. Yeah.
So I always I had an event in Mystic, and I kind of had written down, here's the points I want to hit. I had a little guiding sheet with me.
Right.
And I always go back to that sheet about a week before whatever the next event is, go over it and go, nah, that didn't work, or that wasn't that necessary. And so I kind of just reacquaint myself, like we're saying, with my book. I have nice thing is some people have finished it now because it hasn't been out that long.
Right. Yeah.
And it's a very challenging book, I guess, for people. Which is the point. No, you can't have this Kurt Adams character who's utterly, I mean, he's ferocious, but he's intriguing. He's able to, he's able to suck you into with certain arguments, and you go, oh, that's a great point. Well, I shouldn't be agreeing with this man because if he does these terrible things, I know he orchestrates it. You know, that's his job to protect the CSA from unwanted thoughts and ideas. So he's ferocious in his defense of that. But it's been able to suck some unsuspected and surprising people in who went, I kind of agreed with them, and then they were shaken by it, which is kind of nice because that's the point.
Yeah,
that's what that character's supposed to do.
It is. I think that's just a mark of a well written character. When you think of Tony Soprano or anyone from The Wire or any of these great fantastic television shows or many film and book examples too, but just someone that's so ruthless, but then you relate to them in some way, or the quote unquote good guys, but have this terrible streak to them. I'm not sure if the latest miniseries I've watched was We Own the City, about Baltimore, and it's about this gun task force, and it's about this special unit of the Baltimore PD taking guns off the street. But in reality, what really happened, and it's it's all based on things that only happened 10 years ago, but it's like, oh, there's not that when you have a story when there's just a black and white, cut and dry, good versus bad, it's not quite like this in reality, number one, and in a good character development. So that's a great compliment.
It was. I really appreciated it, when I heard that from some people. And I think part of the challenge of the book, and this kind of goes to also what I teach. I teach philosophy. I teach U.S. history. I do teach psychology as well. But when I was making the premise of the book, all right, so you're going to have these states that break away and they create the common states of America. Stone Adams is a second generation revolutionary. So the first generation led the revolution, led the war, broke away, won their war for independence, and now he's trying to continue the revolution forward, maintain the society, and build it. And I decided, well, if they're going to break away, they're going to actually send the United States of America their Declaration of Independence. We're going to tell you why, just like you did to the British. And so the fundamental thrust of the revolution, and hopefully something that grabs I think it's going to grab the reader in the beginning or not. It's introduced very early, but the idea is, so here we are. You all went to NFA. So you took your history class and Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal, bound, endowed by their creator, inalienable rights, the whole nine. So I start with the question, what if that's wrong? What if that's just incorrect way of facing reality? So therefore, you've built a country on a faulty vision of reality. No wonder your country has so many problems, because it's built on this quicksand. And you're trying to build this beautiful temple on a foundation that's not real. That's why your country struggles so much. So let's get to look what's real about people. And so I take that and I flip it, and if I don't have a copy of the Declaration in front of me, but the basic premise is that you have no actual objective value as a human being. People are not made. In fact, people aren't equal, never will be equal, and inequality is the natural order of things. Yeah. So you earn your respect. You earn your humanity. You don't even you're not born with humanity. You're born human. You earn your humanity through good works, through taking proper action for society, through serving the state, and whatever else comes into that. So that's kind of the premise here. And so it goes through this long list then of why they feel this is true. I took some of those ideas from, they were competing philosophies.
Sure.
During the Enlightenment, it wasn't just, oh wow, John Locke's right, and everyone just got in lockstep behind them. Yeah. Or people came later, like Friedrich Nietzsche came later and just said the Enlightenment philosophers were just foolish. Right. Equality is not natural. It's not the way of the world. History is a history of brutality, and it has momentary lapses of brutality where creative genius seems to rise up. But then it falls back into brutality eventually. That's what history is. So live that, and figure out how to deal with that aspect of human nature. And then, of course, those Russian revolutionary thinkers were very much into the idea that you find your place by serving the revolution. That's the biggest thing you can ever serve. There's nothing above the revolution. So that's two driving forces for that.
So that leads me to two questions that I kind of buried in these other questions that we have here. But so we'll get to a couple. But one, where do you fit on that philosophical field of so, and the other one goes along with that. Are you kind of understanding something that you don't agree with, but you are presenting it in a way that it is convincing to people?
One of the things I did, and I have Kurt Adams, he wants his society to thrive. Mm-hmm. He wants the citizens all to do great. I mean, that's it. We all can do this if you just embrace a certain way of looking at the world, which also requires a certain coldness. And one of the, definitely an aspect of myself that I put into Kurt Adams, he tends to talk a lot about how, and when he's actually has an interview program. He's on a television station for the United States of America. First time ever anyone from the CSA is going to do a live interview. And he goes in there, and one of the points he constantly makes is, in your country, children aren't safe. How many kids are abused in your country, year in, year out, and it's just part of life? Because how do you accept that? Because I'll tell you what, his kids aren't treated that way in the CSA because we're dealing with it. And if we horrify people who seem to be tilted in that direction, we don't care. And so they call them, the interviewer basically calls him, well, you guys are just like murderers. You're just hunting people down on because you suspect and whatnot. And he's basically, well, you are enablers who don't mind sacrificing your children to the hands of vile men and women. And he goes, so you're telling me that you got it figured out? And so that idea of protecting children is me, for sure. But the idea of the extremes to which he goes, and that was part of the process of this, was push it to an extreme that I'm not comfortable with, and then go, but who am I to be the barometer of comfort? So make sure I push it then at least 2 standard deviations beyond my comfort level.
Yeah.
And that's where being a history teacher is great. Go read some Genghis Khan. Yeah, go read some Pol Pot.
Yeah.
And then you go, we'll just stretch it out to there, and there you go. Mm-hmm. So there was all right, that sounds awful, but is it really awful? And read history. Yeah. That's not awful.
Right. Oh, yeah.
It's not that bad.
Right. Come on. What am I doing?
Right.
Cool.
Not just based on history. Is there anything reflecting kind of the discourse in our current
I completely get why people would say, geez, this author is influenced by what's going on.
But you said you started this 10 years ago.
I started it 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I started it 10 years ago.
With a crystal ball.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. Sitting with a hat on.
Yeah.
So, and when Out of the Basement came out, I had a really strong copy of Stone Souls completed. Mm-hmm. And then, and I also had a pretty strong copy of Out of the Basement. And then I got them both edited by, this woman, Heather Dowdy, who runs I guess you would call the owner of her own editing company now. Cool. And I happened to, through circumstance, meet Heather, and she was very helpful. She edited both books for me, and it's a great process. And she went through them. She did 3 different types of editing. So she'd go through the book once, go through the book twice, go through the book 3 times. So she did that for both of them. Mm-hmm. So I'm sitting there going, they're both kind of ready. But Out of the Basement, it's just like my turn. Mm-hmm. Okay. Michael Tanner's the main character. So yes, Michael, it's your turn. We'll put your story up there. So I had a conversation with Michael. I appeased him, put the book out in the world. I do that. I talk to my characters, which sometimes is a little weird. But so then, while I'm promoting Out of the Basement through COVID,
right, which is always a fun process.
It's awesome. You can't help, but I don't want to say I just was like, it wasn't even still, and it still wasn't influenced by what was going on. I went back into the book and went, is Stone Adams making strong enough arguments to bring people over, or is he too much. So I went back through it again, just not to tone him down, but to, if it felt like he was getting out of hand, make sure he has another solid argument that could twist someone up. So I went through and I added some pieces of dialogue, took some out, and in so doing, I don't trust my own eyes. So then I contacted Heather. I said, Heather, just so you know, I'm getting ready to do Stone Souls, but I did some touch-ups, and I don't trust my own eyes. Could you give it one rudimentary run over for me? And she said, oh, sure, Jim, no problem. And so we did another round together of edits. But it really wasn't thinking much about now. And the thing is, like, us versus them, that's really a tale as old as time in history. Yeah. So you can look at Stone Souls and go, there's a lot of us's and thems in Stone Souls. Kurt Adams breaks away from the United States and he accuses them of us versus them thinking, while at the same time being very, either you're a member of the CSA or you're not. Right. So he's very much in that same mold. He just feels his is more justified than others, which usually what happens when we have our us's and thems. And but it really wasn't with an eye on anything. Now it was just broader than that. Right.
That'd be interesting to any comments that you get for a reader today. Yeah. It would just be fascinating seeing, because this is certainly, at least in my roughly 40 years of existence, certainly the most us versus them climate that we've
without a doubt
that we are in.
Did that play it all into the book as you're writing it? And did you notice it as the book was progressing?
I mean, you noticed it, but I can't say it was consciously on my mind. The flip side of that is, this will be something exciting for the listeners to delve into. They'll love this. I sit at home sometimes and watch videos about the psychology of creativity. Just like everyone else does.
He's just a normal guy,
This is what we do.
Yeah. Do we have a coaster of one of those too?
So I'm watching one of these videos, and the fellow who's talking is very much a Jungian, Carl Jung. And Carl Jung was obviously someone who was a firm believer in the idea of unconscious influences on us.
Synchronicity.
Right. The whole nine, archetypal forces and collective unconscious and all that.
I just have one quick question. When Carl Jung ages, is he still young or does he become old?
Forever young.
Forever young.
Isn't that a Fraser Crane episode?
Is that
Forever Young? Anyway, I'm sorry.
I just know Bob Dylan and Rod Stewart number.
Yeah. So you're watching the video.
So this fella says that, a lot of times, from his perspective, and I agree with that, a creative person almost can never know everything that's influenced them at any one time. And sometimes looking back, they go, oh, that was influencing me. Or sometimes they look back and they wrongly attribute that influenced me when in fact it wasn't. So I can tell you consciously what I was looking at, and it was always back to the Russian Revolution. I kept myself firmly planted because I wanted him to have those characteristics. Yeah. So whenever I felt like I was losing Kurt Adams, I would just go read Russian Revolution.
That's pretty cool.
That sounds good. Go to school raging.
Right. So you're watching YouTube videos of psychology.
Yep.
And you're reading The Russians.
Yes.
So
the healthy
excellent.
life.
Excellent. And swilling vodka.
That's right.
Well, speaking of the teaching element, how do you think your work as a teacher complements you as a writer? Or does it? It seems like it does already with your...
No, it surely does, because those three factors, those three topics all play into what I do.
Right.
And even something as... I teach the class P3 at MFA now, Philosophy, Psychology, and Pop Culture, in which I...
Wait, is if it's just 2 Ps, would it just be learning how to use the bathroom?
That's right.
Leaving it in.
There you go. But
this is my use in the podcast.
There we go. Throw that stuff in there.
Yeah.
So with the P3 class, you're looking for ways that philosophic and psychological thought can appear in pop culture sources without trying to force fit anything. You can't just can't pretend there's meaning to certain things, or that it has too much deeper than what's there.
Care Bears,
right? There you go. But in that class, you do a section on political philosophy, and you're talking to Thomas Hobbes, where people in a state of nature are naturally wicked. Oh, maybe they are. I bump into a philosopher I share with the kids because there's something they know they haven't heard. There's a guy whose last name, of course, was Schmidt because he was German, and he came before the Nazis, but he was one of the favorite philosophers of certain members of the Nazi Party.
He used to play third base for the Phillies.
And he was a hell of a home run hitter for the Phillies. That's right. You don't know how old he was. He was 92 years old up there for the Phillies.
Those
banging
baby
them out
blue
the park.
uniforms with the maroon. It was excellent. So.
Yeah. He has the most home runs, I think.
As a Philly? Or of any Philly? Or
I think, God, maybe it wasn't Mike Schmidt, but I could have sworn he holds this record for most home runs for a singular team.
Okay. Oh,
because so many home run hitters, so many players in general bounce around.
Sure. Oh,
so I could be wrong. There you go. You look up some baseball trivia.
Right.
Anyway, but Schmidt, the philosopher, said it's not enough just to identify the thems and be separate from them. If you really want to keep your people enthusiastic and feeling a sense of purpose, you have to unleash them on the thems. So it's not just putting up a wall between you, it's getting people to full froth and then wanting to go after the thems. And while, like in this book, Kurt Adams doesn't want the typical citizen to do that, he definitely has this group that's called the Purifiers, who he does want at that froth level to keep the country pure. But not pure in this word that I'm sure people are hearing pure and they're thinking. Aryan. But it's not that. It's pure in terms of, can you embrace the idea that people aren't born with actual objective value? You have no intrinsic value. You earn your humanity and you want to work hard for it.
Right.
Can you embrace that? And if you can't, well, we got a problem.
Yeah.
But if you can, like the world can be yours.
Sure, right.
In that, if you can embrace that, the state will embrace you. One of the problems that the butlers have is they get this pamphlet from the CSA when they're joining, and it mentions, here's some of the benefits of being a good citizen in our country. And every month you get a housing stipend. So you have a job, but we don't want your job to take up too much of your income because we want you to be relaxed and feel comfortable and secure. So now if you have a good job and you're in good standing, we'll give you a housing stipend to help pay for anything at your house, unexpected repairs, septic tank, whatever. This will just help you when those things happen. You'll get a grocery stipend every month. You get a clothing stipend every month. Every 6 months, you get a vacation stipend because we want you to go relax. We want you to take time off and breathe. What good is working hard if you don't get to enjoy the fruits of your labor?
Right.
So let us help you do that. So the both, damn, this sounds wonderful.
Right.
We can do that.
How about your events? Can you tell us a little about some of the events that you've had, maybe some that are coming?
When did I start? In June. We had the book event in Mystic. It was a book
You've
launch.
been doing a lot, which is fantastic.
I guess.
Good.
It seemed like I'm doing
Hell, I've done 2 for my latest one.
Oh, okay, then. I'm doing a lot.
And both of them are virtual, but one of the libraries, there was like 80, maybe not 80, maybe more like 8. I don't think there's even 80. There's probably more than 80 libraries in Massachusetts, but whatever it is, it's a conglomerate of libraries decided to all like pitch into the same one. So that counts as one.
One.
Yeah.
I don't know. It sounds like we could parse that into a few extra.
Right.
But so I started in Mystic, and I was at Bank Square Books, and then had an after event at Mariner, which was fantastic. Let me see, where did I go from there? Then I was in Putnam. I ended up at, I can't remember the name of it. It's in North Franklin, the Carver.
That's where it hit.
Calvert Library.
Which was a great event.
Jim lives right across the street.
I was on the board of directors for a while, too.
Yeah, it was...
they do good there?
Yeah, Christine Schultz really pulled in her people. And it's North Franklin. I was like, man, there's more people in this auditorium there are living in town. Where do people come from? So that was fantastic. They did a great job.
When you have some small towns that have such a showing, and then you have like a large place, and there's like 3 people there, and 2 of them are half dead. They dragged it off the street.
Yeah. No. I get. I've gone to like any independent author. I've gone to events and just was sorry no one showed up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I literally. I'll tell a funny story in a minute after that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. A funny story of the pain of no one came. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
But you're getting people, and
these events have all had attendance.
Great.
I did do. Well, I'm doing this podcast.
Yep.
I did the podcast for Killingly Public Library. I am going to be at Otis Library next month. I'm heading up to. I went to Tatnook, a great bookstore in Massachusetts.
Yeah, the one of the boroughs, right?
Yeah.
Westboro, Marlboro, one of those.
Yeah, it's not far from Worcester.
Yes.
And it's just such a great bookstore.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. So I went there and had a good event there. I'm going to be going on a public television show.
Oh, cool.
Up in Massachusetts.
Nice.
Be my guest. So I got that coming up. I had this. I have the event in Otis. Then I have an event coming in East Lyme in the fall with another science fiction writer.
Oh, great.
And a possible event at Slater in Griswold.
Wow.
So I gotta get that's
Yeah.
5. So I gotta get hustling. Now I have things that are set, and I gotta try to set up some more.
Yeah, it's a big tour. This is great.
There you go. I've got t-shirts made.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Yeah, definitely.
Should.
No, that's so. Let me tell you that. But yeah, so I was at. I got a gig at Madison Library. I was like, oh wow, Madison's a really nice town. Well, they were holding it. The library was being renovated, so they were holding it at an elderly facility. So, and the thing is, it was like basically a hurricane that day.
Oh, good.
So I'm driving out there. Jackie came with me. It was one of the days that I don't know how many kids I had at that point. I can't keep. You know what I mean? I feel
You're cranking
like
them out.
I feel like Sean Kemp. I can't keep track of how many kids I have.
Sean Kemp reference. That's
Jeez.
I never knew that Sean Kemp played for the Cavs until a
Yeah.
while ago.
No, later in his career.
So I always think the Supersonics.
Yeah, that's
but,
who, that's who we should be retired with.
with the glove. Yeah, Gary Payton, the glove. So, anyways, so we drive down to Madison, and it was kind of a hell of a ride. Pretty stormy. It was a dark and stormy day, and we get there, and literally it was like one person shows up, and then they literally rolled in people.
Oh,
I'm
man.
like talking
They're
like
going grabbing folks.
yeah, like literally rolled in
forced.
people that were in the hallway because this was like a pretty it had like the convalescent aspect to it and the assisted living aspect to it. So they literally, I'm like, hell, we're gonna make the best of this one. So
Yeah, and you
So-
do. If nothing else,
Yeah.
you try to just work on your presentation.
Yeah. Oh, there's been I did the Waterbury Library once, and I was like, okay, another big, like a city. I'm
Yeah.
like, this is cool. Usually I don't do the city ones.
Yep.
And, well, they didn't have a room. So in the middle of like where they had the computers, like people are on the computers, I'm talking.
Oh my gosh.
And there's like maybe a handful of people there for me.
Yep.
Again, it was gonna snow this day. It was literally gonna be
Yep.
like, it was a snowstorm predicted at like 3. I'm like, oh Jesus, I gotta make myself get back to Massachusetts before this. But I'm like interrupting people as they're playing Minesweeper on the computer, and so those were some of the
People are shushing you if they're trying to work
Oh
on the
yeah,
homework.
yeah,
I'm doing the homework.
Right. So just some of the,
You mentioned that because I'm going to be in Willimantic too.
Okay. Oh
yeah,
wow,
which
yeah.
would be nice. So I'm hoping to hopefully pull down some folk from Eastern.
And I'm glad
cool.
actually you're. I love Bank Square Books. My event that I had there, this was years ago.
Yep.
You know how many books I sold?
At least one.
Yeah, there you go.
Really?
And the best part about it was,
Jackie bought it.
so this is actually this is the best part about the story. So I was with Jackie and Adam and Gosha, so some friends of ours, and we decided to go to a couple wineries ahead of time. So we went to Jonathan Edwards and Stonington Vineyard.
yeah,
So we went to those two. I had my event. It wasn't a speak. It was just a signing event. That's all it was.
Yeah.
So it was just signing there for me, a couple hours, maybe 2 or so. So Jackie and the two friends go to a Mystic Pizza and did a couple things in Mystic. Well, they come in towards the end for, to kind of like, bring me back, whatever. There's this woman there that had a book called The Lobster Lady. And The Lobster Lady was going on to Adam. This is my book. How come I don't get an event like this? Was really it was trashing me that I'm here selling no books. Adam feels bad and buys her book.
Oh my god!
So me and the Lobster Lady are tied for
man.
books sold
Oh
that
man,
day.
I hope you trashed her on
Oh,
Amazon.
I'm
now.
trashing her
Yeah.
right now. Right?
Yeah,
Right.
the
Now
lobster
on the
lady.
airwaves.
Yeah, it's a beef against the Lobster Lady. So yeah, so those
Gave
are
him
probably my worst 3.
Wow.
Yeah.
But then I went to it'll be like Harwinton or Tiny Town up there,
Yeah.
and it'll be like a full house, and people are
Yeah.
I did one in Canterbury in November.
Really.
And I brought Historical Society, and I brought I bring copies of the Massachusetts books, couple, you know what I mean? people were buying all of them, and I'm like,
Nice.
why the hell do you want to book about Boston restaurants? But sure, that's great, So it was, but yeah, so you just never know. Is what I'm trying to say. Had an event in Plymouth where I live. There's like 12 people showed up. And I'm like, this is a big town. This is where the whole book is about. It's
about the area, right?
And
I was wondering actually. I was going to ask you how things, because your books, I always assumed should have some type of regional, almost natural appeal. Like, hey, this is us.
It's weird. The Connecticut ones still do better than.
No kidding.
Yeah, I think that COVID just ruined stuff as far as like. Well, the first, just like yours, 2020 was the History Lover's Guide was released then, and then, kind of was just they pushed it back 6 months, but I couldn't really do any events for it, so then it was more just some virtual things, which I did, not too many though. Then the Classic Restaurants one has been, a couple online events, but that's really, I mean, I've done one, I think I've done the last couple of months, it was the winter to the spring, I did a couple of events in person, maybe like five or so. But which isn't bad, but just not the same as the Connecticut one. I still get what is it, Columbus Day weekend? I got 4 of 3 of them are tours, but
nice.
It's just funny how those still
resonate. Yeah.
Where these other ones, it's like it's also one of these deals. I don't know if you get this. How many books have you written now? What are you on? This is number 2, 7. The first one's like ooh, it's like, so that's
Well, hopefully
this is less about me. This
no.
This is
that's all right. You don't have to vent it out of your system.
That's it. Yeah.
That lobster lady, she was burning a hole in you. You had to exercise that demon.
See these gray hairs?
It's all her.
Lobster lady.
That's right. Not your kid, just the lobster lady.
The lobster lady. So Jim, you got a good question for number. I should specify which Jim.
He's James.
I know James. James versus James.
I'm gonna go by James today too. No, I'm just kidding.
Number 9 we haven't really talked about.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So since you're a Tolkien fan, what's your hot take on the Amazon Lord of the Rings series that's coming out? Have you heard about it?
I haven't heard much.
Yeah.
And I'm honestly, I'm just hopeful.
Yeah.
You'll want to do a good job. I'm curious how they're going to tell that story, leading up to.
Yep.
So in that regard, I watched the trailer because that's probably not a surprise that I have friends who then will send me trailers. Have you seen the trailer yet? And I'll watch the trailer and I'm like, ooh. Like, it looks like it's doing good, but you don't want to base too much on trailers.
Right.
But I am very interested. I'm curious, hopeful. And but at the same token,
yeah, very good, very good.
I'm nervous about watching it, and not for the reasons of a fan being disappointed. Like I said earlier, I'm working on a book, Lost Diamonds. Lost Diamonds is a fantasy novel, and it's the first fantasy novel I jumped into. And the reason for that is because I'm a Tolkien fan. Mm-hmm. And years ago, when The Eternal Struggle came out, before The Eternal Struggle came out, my first thought was to write a fantasy novel. And I'm writing this initial fantasy novel, and maybe this is a lesson for me. No ending in sight. The ending movie never played. I'm just writing because I'm a fantasy guy. And so I'm writing it, and I'm going, holy, this is awful. This is a Tolkien ripoff. This is just a fanboy madness.
It's
just terrible.
It's a Tolkien fantasy novel.
So I just stopped it dead in its tracks, and never went back to fantasy again until I felt like now I can actually create my own world. Mm-hmm. It's not unduly. I mean, it's going to be influenced, but not unduly influenced by that. And I'm a little nervous if I jump into the new series.
Right.
Will I start twitching? Wait a minute! You can't. You just watched that. You can't put that in the story. So in that regard, I think I can drop a line between the two, a wall. Yeah. But I am finally writing a fantasy novel.
Cool.
And that's been a while. Been a long time. Actually, building the comfort that you can do that.
Right.
And you won't just be sliding into copying, for lack of a better word. Mm-hmm. Jay Driscoll struggles with that.
Really?
Mr. Driscoll from NFA. Mm-hmm. Jay was a really bright guy and provocative thinker. And on a couple of occasions, myself and some others have mentioned to him, "No, you should write something." You should write. Yeah. And Jay seems like he has a stock answer for that. Mm-hmm. And one of the things he says is, "I don't think I could write anything original because I've read so much. I'm so influenced by certain things. Yeah. I'll just be this carbon copy,
regurgitator
of other thoughts, and I don't want to be that guy. And I don't know. That's pretty solid. And I get it completely, because that's the whole reason I stopped writing whatever the hell I was writing all those years ago.
Right.
So I can see where Jay's coming from.
Definitely. Yeah, it makes sense if there are certain influences that one has, how you'd incorporate that to your own, and how to, it's kind of like My Sweet Lord.
Yeah, and what was the song they ripped off? He's So Fine.
He's So Fine, yeah.
Yeah.
What's that?
My Sweet Lord was the
George
Harrison song. And then they realized that they ripped off all of He's So Fine. And when you listen to him, I'm like, oh my God, they're the exact same song.
Yeah.
Same chords. Yeah,
or then the more updated version, you had Blurred Lines and
what was that song that he
Gotta Give It Up? Is that it?
I don't remember,
Gaye?
but we got one more question.
One more question. Since this is Backyard Road Trips, and we talk about different places that we enjoy, in our greater local area, whatever that is, what are your favorite backyard road trips?
Well, I'll tell you what. This is a little beyond maybe the backyard, but you're a Massachusetts guy,
yeah, I am.
So it's not that far. I don't think.
We're New Hampshire guys, and we're
perfect. It just so happens that my daughter is heading into her last 2 years of high school.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah. And so we started doing a little bit of college looking around. No, low key, no pressure. Just what do you think you want? What do you want to do? She likes playing lacrosse and field hockey. Yeah. And so we went up to Keene, New Hampshire recently, and I have to go back now.
Yeah.
Keene, New Hampshire's
cool town.
A nice spot, and from me in Brooklyn, it was under 2 hours to get there.
Right.
Which means it would be much more than 2 hours and change from Norwich. So we stopped at Keene. We ended up going to Newton, Massachusetts, right outside of Boston.
I lived there for a bunch of years.
Which was nice.
It's a great town.
Yeah. Actually, it was. It had a different feel to it.
Yeah, it's cool.
There's Keene, but it was
13 villages in Newton. They all have their own little.
Absolutely,
it's cool.
Yeah. So we did a little loop just recently up into New Hampshire, then came down to Newton, and then came back to Brooklyn.
Nice.
So so that was nice.
Right.
And now that I'm living in Brooklyn, I try to hit some of the trails out there, and I'll tell you that I think it's Furnace Lake State Park.
Okay.
Nice place to go for a walk.
Yeah.
And then if you just leave there and you can drive off to there's the airline trail.
Yeah.
And be right.
Yeah,
and then there's the airline trail. I don't know what this is called. Airline Trail Shack Cafe. Whatever. It's like a
I know what you mean.
Roadside burger,
like a
chicken,
like a joint. Yeah.
Joint, right? And so that's a nice spot to sit down, get an ice cream, get something, relax. So that's up around where I live.
Right.
Nice.
Right. James, can you tell our wide audience, first of all, can you list everything out there that they're going to rush to buy? So all of your collected works.
Oh, God.
The anthology. And how would you acquire this collected works, and where to find you, website, social media.
Oh, sure.
Social security number.
I got a Visa card right here. I'll read that for people.
Does it have airline miles?
So, I don't have those, but it helps you get discounts at Amazon.
Okay,
so,
perfect.
Build that up.
That works. Yeah.
So how can we find you?
But I have a website, jamesrourkeauthor.com, so you can go there. There is I'm on Facebook, Instagram. I don't post as often probably as someone who's trying to do this should, but
you're an influencer though, right? Yeah,
that must be it.
That's right.
There's the dances. He's on TikTok.
Right. TikTok dancing. Yeah.
That's what the people want to see. I've heard. I'm just holding back until they build it up. The suspense.
The autumn close edition next.
That's right. So on Amazon, you could find actually my earliest two books are nonfiction, From My Classroom to Yours, which is about teaching philosophy, the comic book curriculum, which is about using comics in the classroom to help engage, any student really, not just those who are reluctant readers. Then you have The Eternal Struggle, which is not available on Amazon. It's available on the publisher's website, Open Books Press. Then also on Amazon, you could find Out of the Basement and Stone Souls.
Great.
Which is, it's funny, those two books have, all titles matter, but Out of the Basement is a book that's about a man who was abused as a child. Mm-hmm. And so Out of the Basement is metaphoric for him being trapped in his mind at certain times into what happened to him in the basement. And he needs to free himself. And Stone Souls, on some level, that they settled on that title because it was the idea of, be careful. If your soul turns to stone, the ramifications can be horrific. And that's kind of what the idea of stone souls means to me.
Oh, great.
And how do you keep that from happening? And one of the characters in the book actually is trying to prevent that. Puts him in the crosshairs of Kurt Adams.
Wow. Oh, that's great. It's so interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the Backyard Road Trips podcast. Thanks for listening. I'm Zach.
I'm Jim.
And I'm James.
You can follow us on social media at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or on our website at backyardroadtrips.com.